it was more at first a way to express myself. It's kind of funny because like people always assume like, yeah, man, I was like, I came out of my mother's womb and I was into hip hop. It's funny. I didn't really like hip hop until high school. Like my whole way through, I was always loved music in general, but like hip hop not. In fact, I went through a period where I didn't even really like hip hop because I didn't know that much about it. I just saw mostly what was on MTV, which was, you know, kind of a lot of negative images and stuff. And I was like, this is the music. And then one day, my cousin came to my house and he brought this mixtape, literally like back in the days when it was actually on cassette tape.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
He brought this tape and he played this tape and like most of the songs was like, I wasn't feeling it. But there was like one or two songs, one by Common, another song I think like by Nas, and like after that I just started doing more research into it and I was like, wow, this is really like, I really felt it. And I was bored out, I was just writing poetry. So then when I listened to certain rappers like Common Sense and Mos Def, I was like, hold on, this is like poetry but with music. And then I started to write my own. So it was all about expression, but over time, the love for the actual hip-hop grew as well.
How did you end up going to Sarajevo and Bosnia, and what drew you to the region and the city?
I don't know if you ever used MySpace, but like if you're an active MySpace user, you remember a time when MySpace was like such a hot social network before Facebook and Twitter.
Yeah, I do.
I remember I was doing a music tech course at this college in North London. I met with this other dude who was also a rapper and he was doing a sound engineering course. And he was like, oh, you know, why don't you put your music on MySpace? And I was like, what's this MySpace? And I've never heard of this MySpace. And I went to his house one day and he showed me the MySpace. And that night I made my MySpace page. And like over, I don't know, like 6-7 months, I started to gather like a following of people from random places in Europe and random places in the world. And then it just happened that I was noticing that there was a lot of listeners of my music via MySpace who were from the Balkans. And like a couple of them messaged me. I did a couple of songs with some dudes in Serbia, a couple of dudes from Croatia. And it was like really funny because at that time I didn't really know that much about the Balkans. So the fact that there was rappers there was like astonishing to me. Like, what? There's rappers over there? Like, I couldn't believe it.
It's astonishing to me too.
Yeah. So it was like in 2009, this duo called Backyard from Belgrade, they messaged me like they want to do this song and they want to do a music video with me. So I was like, yeah, cool, let's do this. So they sent me the track, we recorded the song. I went over there in like February of 2009, we shot a music video, and then there, you know, I started to speak to them. I found out a lot about, you know, Yugoslavia, this and that, and I decided, like, later on that year, I went to Zagreb, and when I was in Zagreb that summer, I just met a lot of Bosnians when I was in Zagreb, and in particular, I met a friend who's now, like, one of my best friends. I met this dude from Bihać, and, like, he was a mutual friend of my friend in Zagreb. It was really funny, because it was like an unexpected meeting. I remember he came there to Zagreb like on a last-minute thing. I was also went there on a last-minute thing. I remember I was actually planning to go back to Belgrade. So I switched my plans and went to Zagreb. And we met, and then we stayed in touch for like the whole following year. And then the following summer came and he called me like, oh, you know, Nick, I'm going to Sarajevo and we're trying to do this production company, this and that. And it's like, why don't you get involved? And I was like, I'd never even been to Sarajevo before, and I was just like, okay, yeah, let's do this. And I just went over there and then discovered Bosnia.
And that's fun, you were like between Belgrade and Zagreb, and then you ended up in Sarajevo in the middle.
Yeah, exactly. It was really, my time in Sarajevo was really, like on Bosnia in general was really, I don't know, I learned so many things that I didn't know. I remember I can remember the day before I went to Sarajevo. There was a guy in my town. There was some event going on, and he said to me, oh, like, do you want to come to this event? It's on Friday, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, you know what? I can't come to this event because I'm going to Sarajevo on the weekend. And he just paused. He was like, what? Sarajevo, what? I said, I'm going to Sarajevo on the weekend. He's like, Sarajevo. He's thinking. Oh, Bosnia, you're going to Bosnia? Yeah, man, I'm going to Bosnia. Then there was another pause, and then he said, wait, so you joined the army. And it's really like that. Like, people in Britain have this, not everyone, but like majority of people, fair to say, that have this image of like Bosnia, like just bombs. People still think there's a war going on, basically, to just be basic. They just think there's a war going on. And I mean, remember that even the first time I went to Serbia, it was actually, I was filming a documentary about Serbian hip-hop. And like, it was also part of my university project, like was my final year of university, it was like my final film, and we had to give this lecture about what the film was that we were making. And I was like the third person to go up, and I went up, and I said, oh, so I'm making a film about Serbian hip-hop, and the whole room went silent, and the lecturer was like, what did you just say? I said, I'm making a film about Serbian hip-hop. And then the teacher was like, why are you going to Serbia? I said, oh, because I'm making a film about Serbian hip-hop, I should go to Serbia. And then one guy in the crowd, he shouted out, yeah, well, be careful, Smooth, you know you can get shot there. And it's really like that. So he was coming to Bosnia, and the Balkans in general was like a really learning experience for me. And that's when I started a lot of, it was after being in Sarajevo, though, when I started to really do the videos and stuff, because I felt people should see another side of Bosnia and the Balkans that we don't really get to see that much in main media. Like when they see, if anyone that knows anything about Bosnia, it's only like war or something negative, and so they have this limited view. And that's when I decided, I was going to start all these YouTube videos.
How did it feel for you as a black person traveling around the region and in Sarajevo, because it's something that often gets swept under the rug, because, let's face it, there's not a lot of black people around.
Yeah, it's, to me, I love the experience of being a black person traveling around the region. First of all, because it's the total opposite of what I was expecting it to be. You've seen this, unfortunately, you've probably seen the thing that happened with England and Serbia. But that's actually, in my opinion, that's a minority of people. Of course, you're going to get people like that wherever you go, but that's a minority of people. But that's the image that we know here in the West of Britain. Like, you get this image that it's all going to be like that. But for me, I came was like the total opposite. Like, I felt special being a black guy in Belgrade, in Zagreb, in Sarajevo, especially in Sarajevo. Like, especially in Sarajevo. Like, I remember the day we got into the apartment in Sarajevo, I stepped onto the balcony, and like there was the building across from us. Suddenly all these curtains started flipping open, and then this woman just came out onto her balcony, and she was like, Jesse, stand up. I felt like being a superstar just because I was a black guy. With this whole thing I was touching on before was people talking about, racism stuff. I remember somebody said to me, before I went, when I told them, I'm going to Sarajevo for like so-and-so months, we're going to try and do this production company, this and that. And this guy said to me, aren't they racist over there? And I was like, well, aren't they racist in London? Like, what do you mean? Like, the thing is, in all honesty, I don't think there's, first of all, I would say, I don't think there's a true racism in the sense of what I classify as racism when in Sarajevo, because people are too busy hating on each other for other reasons, for religious reasons, to actually be racist. Other than that, it's like you say, people say what they mean. Like in London, the racism and things like that is, I think, 5 times more. But the difference is, I can walk into a shop in London. This woman might serve me at the counter and she's smiling, good day, good morning, blah, blah, blah. She gives me what I paid for. I walk out, and when I walk out of that shop, that's when she's saying, look at this guy, go back to Africa, or whatever it is that she wants to say. But in Balkans, I find it's like, if somebody likes me, they're going to tell me, yeah, I like you. If somebody doesn't like me, they're going to tell me, I don't like you. And to me, I prefer it like that, because I know where I stand with people, and I actually prefer that. It can be intimidating, I guess, and I can understand why some people may not like that. But for me, I just prefer to know where I stand with people.
With the Balkans now, Croatia is slowly making its way into the EU, and who knows when Bosnia will make it in. But how do you feel about this? As a person living in the European Union now, and these countries are about to get in, but you've experienced something else over there, and basically the whole thing is saying you're not quite good enough. That's the message, constantly. It's been for decades. So
it's interesting because you know what? like especially with Bosnia, like I was looking at the requirements to join the EU.
Yeah.
And actually, Bosnia, they met every requirement that was asked for, and they still didn't get into the EU, which is kind of interesting. It was like, I can't remember exactly what it was, but I remember looking at the list one day, and it was like 73 requirements, and like Bosnia met all of those requirements. They didn't get into the EU. There was some other countries that, I don't know, was lacking 3 or 4, they got EU. And it is that attitude like, oh, well, you know, these certain countries are not good enough. That's how the EU looks at it. But personally, right now, living in the EU and this, and I really hope Bosnia doesn't join the EU. And I'm kind of upset in a way that Croatia is. Like the EU, I think the EU has brought more problems than solutions, to be honest with you. So I actually hope that Bosnia doesn't join the EU. But, you know, like I guess that was the big aim. But like I saw a speech from David Cameron a month ago, maybe more than that. He was asking, you know, now they're actually making a conscious effort to get more Balkan countries into the EU. And the reason for that, in my opinion, because they can see the potential that the Balkans hold. There's a lot of potential, certain elements that hold that potential back. And I think that certain countries in the EU, they're realizing this and saying, you know what, if they're not going to make use of that potential, let's swoop in and let's take it. Might seem really extreme to some people, but that's how I view the whole EU situation right now. When I was in Sarajevo last time, I remember there was a couple of occasions when I was waking up in the apartment, I was staying in the morning, and there was no water. I was like, what's going on? And it was always between certain hours, and then later on I found out that apparently, to the best of my knowledge, the US government is buying up Bosnia's waters. And I was like, to me, that whole thing is, and people were just saying it like it was something normal. Like, oh, you know, yeah, the US is buying up the Bosnian water supply. Like, that's not something normal. Like, they're taking a resource from a valuable resource. So, like, if they were doing that in let's quote unquote say a major country, as they call it, that would never, like, people would be uprising, there'd be, you know, protests. But, you know, they do it in Bosnia where people don't really know it's there. So it's like, whatever, we can do that. And I think that's what this whole idea of we're going to just show a one-sided view of this place, so then when we can justify whatever we do there, you know?
And Nick, I wanted to ask you something you talk about in your video is, why do you think there's so much social and political apathy, probably wherever you look now, in Britain, Croatia, Bosnia, Australia, even both with poor people and rich people? They seem to accept anything that comes at them most of the time.
I think it's this idea that people have this idea that there's nothing they can do, you know. So, like, I've seen, for example, a couple of people said to me, oh, you know, I really like your message. I like what you're saying in your music. I like what you're saying in your videos, but you can't change anything. Like, so, you know, you should, like, I'm not trying to discourage you. It's funny, I'm not discouraging you, but they're saying that I'm trying to. But, you know, I'm not trying to discourage you, but, you know, you can't change anything. And I think that's that whole mentality of people are just overwhelmed by everything that happens. And also, there's also a flip side to that. There's a lot of people that I've noticed that actually don't want to accept certain things. You know, you're especially from a Western perspective, you're taught a certain thing from when you're young. You know, this is the way things are. This is the way that things should be. And as you get older, that you get, especially with the modern age with the internet, and you know, there's so much information out there for you to see the real picture. And some people see the real picture of what's going on, and it's scared. I don't want to accept that, so let me just go back to staying in my bubble and staying in my comfort zone. Therefore, I don't have to worry about these things. That can be cool for some people, but I personally can't really live like that. For example, what happened when they tried to do like a gay parade in Belgrade? There wasn't actually an official gay parade in Bosnia, but I remember when I was in Sarajevo last time, there was a group of guys that, I wouldn't call it a gay parade, but it was like some kind of made a public parade. Like these group of like gay guys, they was walking down and they was holding banners, you know, like we should be treated like human beings, you know, this, that, and the other. The usual things that you would see at you know, a gay parade. And these guys just got beaten up like, so badly. They got like hammered. And there's so many, I don't know, there's so many reasons for that I just, it's something that's in a way hard to explain, but in some sense it's straightforward. Like, I just think that, especially in somewhere like Bosnia, where there's been conflicts and there's been divisions and stuff like that, it's just another division, really. That's really a simplistic way of putting it, but it can be perceived as like, for example, compare it to what it is in the Western context. In the Western context, we're actually taught, this tolerance, especially now. If you look at if I take Britain, for example, if I think about a lot of the major TV shows that come on a Saturday weekend, I could actually say like 30 to 40% of the presenters are gay. And that's not some kind of me dissing that. I'm just saying that to me that's a representation of the culture here, where they're saying we should accept this. I even think in a Western context it's even gone to another level where it's actually something cool. You see shows like Ugly Betty and even on another level. Whereas when you look in the Balkan context, it's totally the opposite.
Yeah.
Like, you're a man, you're supposed to be a certain way. I guess it's a cultural thing that it's not going to change like overnight.
I know you love cevapi and burek. There's been more and more people saying throughout the Balkans, now how these foods are unhealthy for you and how people are getting overweight and there's all these other problems that go with it. On the other hand, there's McDonald's commercials, which now sponsors sports and presents itself as this great healthy option for life. It's slowly, I think it's seeping into the mentality of the people.
Yeah, it's really funny you mentioned that, because I remember when I started this whole issue about McDonald's being built in Sarajevo, and I spoke to a friend of mine in Belgrade, and I was like, I'm starting this group against McDonald's being in Sarajevo. Like, and he was like, no, why am I like McDonald's? I was like, okay, but like, and he said, he said to me, you talk about this burek and cevapi all the time, but that's not healthy either. And I was asking, you've got a point, it's not exactly health, but you compare that to McDonald's. That's like the healthiest thing of all time if you're going to compare it to something like McDonald's. My view on it is, if you are going to eat fast food, at least eat. Like, I find it difficult, first of all, to see cevapi, even though I know it's fattening and I know it's this and that. I find it difficult to look at it as fast food because of the fact of, you got these Western corporations like McDonald's and Burger King and KFC. To me, when I think fast food, that's what jumps into my mind. So when I then see burek and cevapi, to me that's just like, that's just like some homemade food that's, it's fattening. But, I can't see it as fast food. But from my perspective, if you're going to eat fast food, and if that is burek and cevapi is fast food, at least eat fast food that is natural.
It used to be homemade, and I think that's what changed this idea, this perception of it as being sold as fast food now. Even it's probably different in Bosnia where you can get it on the street, but in Croatia, a lot of places, you go to a pekarna or bread shop, and it's probably you buy this mass-produced burek, and you don't have that homely feel, and it's just another food. It's just another fast food. Yeah.
It's like from that, when you put it in that context, then I totally understand what people are saying. But the reason why I guess people say I champion burek and stuff like that is that I still feel, with all of that, it's something that is it's funny because people say, okay, it's fast food and people are gaining weight because of it and this and that, but then McDonald's are open and they'll accept that. Why would they accept a McDonald's? But it comes back to this idea of imperialism to a degree, like, because it's somehow because McDonald's, something like a McDonald's. For example, somebody said to me, a capital city isn't a world city until there's a McDonald's. So it's this idea that to be, a recognized city, you must have a McDonald's. That's kind of crazy when you think about it. Why must there be a McDonald's for you to be a recognized city? So people will accept a McDonald's and say, okay, yeah, we have a McDonald's, and then say that burek, which is a traditional food, we shouldn't be eating that. And it's this idea that somehow McDonald's is better because this big corporation, too much of anything is a bad thing. I personally don't think it's specifically that foods, like traditional foods like Buddha and Zaper, is bad. I just think it's such a... That food in general is a big part of most cultures. Most countries you go to, like, food is a big representation of that culture, of that country, especially in the Balkans. And it's just a thing, you know, people are proud of their food and this and that, and it's just, yeah, we're going to eat this every day. Yeah, so it's because you're eating every day. That's why you're gaining weight. It's not because it's just so bad. It's just, if you eat Buddha every day, then yeah, you're going to gain weight. That's quite logical. And also, there's other things to take into account. I don't know how people doing exercise and this and that, because I'll tell you something that actually surprised when I was in Sarajevo for the first time. Was everybody was on, especially specifically young kids. I'm talking from the age of like 10 and upwards. I was going to internet cafes, and there's kids in there all day playing Counter-Strike, sitting there all day. So like, I thought it was something that was only kind of a Western thing, but I guess it's spreading now. Like this, I can never remember myself as a kid. I mean, I like computer games, but I can never remember spending that amount of time sat down playing a computer game. Like, I'll be honest with you, the first time coming to the Balkans, I was a little bit nervous because of what people was telling, you know, all these criminals and this and that. I was actually nervous, but because of the type of person that I am, I said, you know what, I'm not going to allow what I'm being told to stop me from experiencing something myself. I said, I'm going to go there and I'm going to see it for myself. And I'm so pleased I did that, because it was totally different. Like, the hospitality, I've never experienced the kind of hospitality that I've experienced in Bosnia, like anywhere else in Europe. And that's my